All right, everybody, welcome back to Bet Like No One's Watching, the podcast that happens whenever I feel like it. No intro today. I've been using Liv Cowherd lately, but it's been a while. It's been a pandemic or two, but I'm back to talk about all kinds of cool stuff that happens in the sports betting world. And I'm joined today by none other than Shiz Money. Sean is Money. Sean, how are you?
Great, man. Thanks for having me on the pod. Really appreciate it. It's been too long. Lots been going on since we've last talked, including a CFL XFL thing, which
We
I
we we talked we talked we
it's
talked
wacky.
briefly before we started recording, and we didn't even mention that. And
Yeah,
I have to say right off the top, I wanted to tweet Ryan Reynolds because he has an ongoing feud with The Rock, and
right.
The Rock now owns the XFL, and I want Ryan Reynolds to buy the CFL so he can show him how a football league is really run. And
Absolutely.
the thing that kills me about the XFL, and I can't remember if we've talked about this before, but last season, they do not have an onside kick.
Yeah, right. They start right from the 25-yard line. What Bill
And
Belichick
so
did
if one team gets up by 3 touchdowns, the game becomes unwatchable. It becomes unwatchable. And if they try to put those rules into the CFL, it's going to break my heart. It really, really
Yeah,
is.
and the thing is, I don't know how they can because of all the ways you could score, not by just carrying. You can do rouges and there's all types. Kick the ball forward for reception. I mean, there's just so many ways to score, and that's the thing. Like if I went to the Rock and corporate, I'd be like, hey, XFL, you should be doing what the CFL is doing.
It should be
Because
the other way
that's
around.
Yes, exactly. Except make it four downs. Maybe we can do like AL and L. Like in Canada, they have three downs. Here we have four downs, but the rules are the same CFL rules. The wide field, everything, all that stuff.
Pat
The one
McAfee
challenge. Yeah.
Pat McAfee was talking on his show a couple weeks ago about how the rules committee was talking about a point for the kickoff through the uprights. And I'm like,
Yep.
they already have that. It's in CFL. You know, it's like, why aren't you? It's interesting because they say that they want to take kicking out of the game in the NFL, but then at the same time, they say they want to take hitting and the violence and the concussions out of the NFL. But you got to put the kicking back in if you're going to take the hitting out. If you're not going to have the bodies running together, you're going to have to actually use your feet for the football. So
Now that's true. These NFL teams going to be
I really feel like the
yeah.
CFL is the best version of the game in North America right now. I really do. But I hope they have a season. I really do. I got the only good gift I've gotten this year because of the pandemic is the fact.
I love, like, for example.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're lagging on my end here. Sorry about that.
That's great.
But no, yeah. But no, I mean, the one thing we've learned from CFL is that the NFL is adopting things about their play. For example, I think that it's a really good idea. The Colts did this last year by having the exclusive quarterback sneak quarterback, and I think Cam Newton's going to be that guy in New England this year as well. Eventually Mac Jones will start, but it's not to say that when it's like 4th and 1, bring in Cam Newton. Just like in the CFO when it's 4th and 1, Strebler was that guy, and then the guy ahead of him got hurt. He came up and he wins a Grey Cup and has one of the most epic parties in CFL Grey Cup race history.
That was great, and he signed a contract with the Arizona Cardinals. And
yeah, they really like him.
And they didn't use him for the short yardage QB, and then Kyler Murray got hurt, and he had to come in and play the pocket passer, and that's totally not his game. And he looked bad, and they're like, "Oh, this guy's some washed CFL guy."
Oh yeah, Boomer Esiason was like shitting on him.
Yeah. So it's not really representative of the kind of player he is. But
no, I don't think so. And I think he should be considered like a like, for example, I think what the Saints do with Taysom Hill, right? He should be considered for that type of role. I think Tim Tebow could be considered for that in Jacksonville. We could see Tim Tebow back in the NFL, as crazy as it sounds, to be that type of role, as long as he's also willing to play special teams.
Will Bovada have a jump pass prop bet in 2021?
Yes, they will. You'll have plenty of them. You'll be able to bet everything, Tebow. Trust me.
Well, that's
Yeah.
I'm super excited for NFL futures to come out. Of course, this whole Aaron
Yes.
Rodgers stuff is
Oh, the Rogers thing shifts the entire landscape, doesn't it? Oh my
it
goodness.
does, and I have to give props to the very first thing that popped into my head was, if Rodgers leaves the division, is Lions at 33-1 or whatever they are. I think they're down to like 25-1 to win the division because
You could bet on Dan
that
Campbell.
division is wide open without Aaron Rodgers in it. It really
Yeah.
is.
Oh yeah. I mean, the Bears should win it based on like talent, 1-53. But unfortunately, they're coached by Matt Nagy.
Yeah.
And then you have the Lions, who are intriguing. However, Dan Campbell, I mean, will that work? I don't know. And the Vikings, Mike Zimmer is just 8-8. So,
Yes, he's the Jeff Fish
yeah,
8-9 now. He's the Jeff
yeah,
Fisher of the 20 of the new century, I guess. But speaking, let's take a minute and talk about futures. We don't really have NFL to really comb over right now because the odds are going to be greatly adjusted in the next couple of weeks. But we've got the NBA and the NHL and baseball. If you want to look a little further out, I was actually looking at college football odds for next season, and it's still, this coming year is still the 4-team playoff. So you can pretty much narrow it down to 8 teams at this point.
yeah. I mean,
If you're
that's the
going to
thing
bet
about
on college football.
football.
But let's talk. I'm not much of an NBA guy. Let's cover that real quick, just because I was looking at the odds today, and the Suns and the Jazz and the Nuggets are getting like no respect, and they're
Mhm.
like 3 of the top 4 seeds in the West right now. And obviously, LeBron and Unibrow were hurt. And they're like the 6th seed right now. And Brooklyn is still the league favorite at like plus 225 or something like that. And
Yeah, they're -110 to win the East, that's the first time in a long time I've seen a team be at minus.
when
I mean, well,
when
the
when
Bucks.
when Philadelphia has a better record, I know records don't really mean that much, regular season, blah blah blah, but assuming that they have Embiid and a full complement for the playoffs, you would think that whoever got the number 1 seed would avoid the 2-3 matchup. So if Philly does get the 1 seed, you've got the Nets playing the Bucks, in the conference semis, and then you've got the Knicks and the Hawks playing, against Philly, 1-4, 1-5, and it just seems like a tougher road to hoe. I'm just, as a bettor, I'm always just trying to figure out where the value is.
Absolutely. No, and I definitely second on you on that. Like, how I bet the East is how it's eventually seeded. In the West, I just think that you can bet both the Suns and the Jazz, and then just hedge as the series go, because they're going to be competitive in each and every series. Both of these teams are going to be 6-game, 7-game series, very close games. They have great players in great form. It's just
Yeah.
can they overcome their shortcomings when they actually face some of the bigger opponents? But I think that, and not only that too, depending on how that's seeded out, if they're on both sides of the bracket, hopefully if you can take
I'm
the Jazz and Suns and get to the conference final, then you can have some real fun with that.
I'm sure
I
that
think,
Adam Silver will have the reffing crew on speed dial for certain matchups, but
of course, yeah, of
you know,
course.
figuring
I
out
mean,
which
the Clippers thing last year, the Clippers lost to the Nuggets last year. You could literally hear Secaucus going, "Oh." It's just,
so
the balloon went out.
I think there's going to be some really good value. I mean, the Suns at 14-1 right now, or 14,
I had the
15 to
Suns
1.
season over. Devin Booker is a top 3 player,
Oh, he's
and that's
really
just
good.
something in that league we do. Yeah, yeah, that's something in form, top 3 player. He's been not hurt really. Going into the season, I just think that going into the postseason, I just think that that's a guy you definitely want to look at individually, especially if you're looking at props too. Looking at individual props, I think that in terms of game to game, that's something you want to look at once he gets to the postseason, because he's going to be pumped. He's going to want to put on his best ever and show that he is a top 3 player, because he is. He's an amazing.
Yeah, it'll be
scorer.
nice for him to get some big time screen time for sure.
Yeah.
Because they
Oh,
just play at just the weirdest time slot unless you live in Vegas, you know. All right, let's move
right.
on to hockey, which is something I'm a little more familiar with. What do you think about the Bruins this year? I just want to get your take on it, being from Boston.
Yeah, I mean the Taylor Hall pickup is interesting. He's just been kind of, he's been okay.
Yeah,
However, I think the key thing for them is just, hey, just be a productive member. I mean, their penalty, the convert on the power play is amazing. They're still one of the best teams in that regard. Although the Islanders can certainly put the puck in the back of the net as well. I think the key for the Bruins is goaltending. Can Tuukka Rask just get his shit together? They've had his backups in there. They've brought up some other kids. It just, is he ready for a full playoff run? And that's why before the season, I took the Capitals to win the division, because I just think they're just more solid. They're more tougher, even though we're going to talk about Tom Wilson. But, yet again, that brings like a toughness that is were required for playoff hockey. Whereas, the one thing about the Bruins is that, they can score on anybody. It's just they have these lapses.
they
And
do.
they certainly missed the Dano Chara in the back end defensively, particularly now they have some injuries. One because of one certain Tom Wilson on and then Carlo, unfortunately. But I mean, they're a live dog. I mean, we're the best, face-off team with Bergeron and others. They have 3 really solid lines,
Yeah,
and
they do.
Cassidy. And they're a live dog for sure. Even though they struggled to get into the playoffs because of their midseason struggles and injuries. And David Pasternak, literally a man who lives in the North End, which is the Italian part of Boston, coming in overweight. I'm like, oh wait, he's been eating too much pasta. How apt, So, and he's in
And
shape now. So that's
and yeah, and Dunkin' breakfast, of course.
yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah, that's I think the Islanders are lacking in the goaltending department.
As they
Uh,
always are.
well,
They're the most interesting
Varlamov
dog,
is,
really.
I don't want to say he's washed, but he's not peak Varlamov anymore. And
Mm.
Sorokin is their other goaltender, and I don't think he's ready for playoff hockey. And the same, they got Lundqvist was supposed to be with the Capitals, and he had his heart problem. And so they've got these 2 kids, Vanacek and Samsonov, and that's a question mark. And then you've got the Penguins with Tristan Jerry, and that's going to be their number 1 guy, and he's been a great regular season goaltender. He's had some good playoff
Plus,
appearances.
yeah.
So we'll have to see. But I really think the value in the NHL is in the North, the Great White North, and it's
Mm.
I, as a Buffalo fan, we can't have playoff hockey in Buffalo. We can't have nice things. So we have to root against the Maple Leafs. And the value is really on who's going to come out of that division, I think, because, the playoff format is different this year. They play down to the winner of each division. And Toronto has another epic collapse like they always do. I think they're one of those other teams is going to be a great Stanley Cup future. You've got the Oilers at 25-1, the Jets at 30-1, and the Canadians at 35-1. And the Canadians have given Toronto fits this year.
Yeah, I think that not only that too, the component of the fact that we will have at least one Canadian. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have one Canadian finalist in the Stanley Cup. How are they doing that this year with the whole pandemic thing? I didn't actually catch up on how they're doing that.
They're talking about having the Canadian playoffs in a bubble, because it's actually worse up there than it is here, believe it or not.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. They're lacking vaccines and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. So they're talking about having the 4 playoff teams play in a bubble, which they did Vancouver and Toronto last year. Hopefully they'll do Vancouver and keep Toronto off their home ice. But
Yes.
and then one of those teams is going to have to come down to the States to play in the Final 4.
Okay.
So It's the top, the four remaining teams when they get to the semifinals. The top point getter plays the bottom point getter of the remaining teams, so they're seeded by their total points.
Right.
So they'll probably get, if one of the, if team like Montreal does come out of the Great White North, then they're going to get like Vegas, or actually the top player in the league right now is the Carolina Hurricanes, believe it or not. So
Wow.
yeah, and they they had a great season out of James Reimer. Who would have thunk it? And they got that great rookie goalie, and then they got Mrazek back. They've got it, all together there if they stay healthy. But they're like 8-9 to 1 to win the cup, and they're the number one seed in that Central Division. And Florida and Tampa Bay and are right behind them. And Dallas is trying to sneak into that 4 spot, but I think Nashville's going to get it.
And Dallas is also another great power play team, and they can really. I think they can really. Very matchup dependent. Although, like last year, how the stars aligned. No pun intended. I think also too, with the format you mentioned with the Canadian teams, I think that will actually, I think there's actually extra value for the Canadian teams. To be the one team to represent Canada. We're gonna go down in the States.
Yeah. Well, it's
been a while.
I mean, they're definitely longer odds because of the travel and because of all of that,
and
that
that's
they have to go through.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, but the point being, if they make the Final Four, you're in a hedgeable position. And whether you want to let it ride or not is up to you, but you can close that out,
Absolutely.
with a little
like,
math.
You're right there, and then that's a hedging opportunity.
So, so it'll be interesting to see. Quickly, we'll talk about baseball, and then we'll move on to all of our social media friends and gambling Twitter and whatnot.
Yes.
I decided to, do my Vegas State imitation this year and bet a bunch of futures, because there were a lot of long odds. Beginning of the season, everybody was like Dodgers, Yankees, Dodgers, Yankees, Dodgers, Yankees. And I was like, you know what? There's got to be some decent teams in the mix here. And I made a few bets early in the season that were super long odds. And I said, why the heck not? I mean, I'm not betting insane amounts of money, but I have, future positions that are, $2,500, $3,000 on the Royals, the Brewers, the Red Sox, the Giants, the Mariners. I had 7 total. Oh, the Phillies, and the Marlins. And the NL East is so wide open that anybody could win it. I got the Marlins at like 85 to 1 or something like that. And they're the playoff team from last year. And these other teams, Red Sox are in first place, the Royals are in first place, the Brewers are in first place, the San Francisco
the Red
Giants
Sox
are
a
in
shocking
first.
one to me, because I was like, they were going to be shitty this year. Like, in terms of I don't think their pitching is all that good at all. And granted, I know their offense was good, but my goodness, they've really surprised me.
Yeah, and here's the thing about pulling a future on a team like that. That's a team that is going to go and get players if they're in the mix.
Right.
And that's, a team like the Giants, San Francisco Giants, or the Brewers, or the Kansas City Royals are going to be sellers at the deadline. If they're not in the mix, they're going to be sellers, and they're going to write the season off. Where the Red Sox stay in the mix, they're going out. They're going to push their chips, and I feel like the big market teams like that are good futures. That's if they can stick around until the deadline.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Tampa Bay, they're always a year-to-year thing because of the way they do business. Even though they have great prospects, but you just never know. How they're going to play from one year to the next. I mean, they don't have the great depth like the other teams. The Yankees have completely sharded themselves, which is to my delight. And Toronto is actually probably the one threat because of their lineup. I mean, Vlad Jr. has just been amazing, and that guy's awesome. And they're playing in Buffalo, aren't they?
Yes, I was going to mention that
The
earlier.
Buffalo Blue Jays. Let's
The
go.
Buffalo Blue Jays. The only good gift I got from this pandemic was the Blue Jays, who I used to have season tickets to when I lived in Buffalo, are now playing in Buffalo for the rest of the year, starting in June, and that would be possibly playoff baseball in Buffalo, which would be very exciting to say the
That would
least.
be
Buffalo is
so awesome. I
actually,
think.
yeah, they're a good baseball town. Their stadium only holds about 20,000 max, but it's a good baseball town, and I'm excited to go see a game there, a major league game there. It's going to be a special experience for sure. So let us move on to some of the wonderful sports betting news that we like to talk about in the Twitterverse. And let's start with our friends at the Action Network. They apparently just got sold, or they got bought, I should say, to a company called Better Collective. They're in Europe. I think they're in Sweden, and $240 million. Do you think that company's worth that much?
$240 million. I mean, yeesh, that I would think I would have thought they would have got more for it, quite honestly, considering how much they put into effort in terms of having like such a what I would say a premier journalistic presence on Fox News and Fox Sports and ESPN and CBS Sports and all this other stuff. It seems like an undersell to me, but you know.
Yeah, they certainly had. They actually had their own show on ESPN Plus for a while. I forgot
Yeah,
the
I
name
mean
of it.
Chad Millman, was essentially, he onboarded all that stuff. As well as the fact too that that was a big part of their ESPN Insider content. If you remember that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do, but I don't understand my problem. I actually, well, maybe I'm a little bitter because I asked the Action Network on a tweet to add CFL. They blocked me. So,
Why didn't
I
you
was
say it
like,
on the CFL, man?
like
Yeah,
I didn't say, like, it wasn't
on.
like a mean tweet or anything. I was like, hey, Action Network, I'd really like it if you could add CFL, and then I got blocked.
What the fuck,
And
man? Like,
but
it's just like Ben
yeah,
Nolan
but
sitting at the CFL. It's like, I've met him before. He's a nice guy.
the point being, where's the value in the product? That's my thing. And that you're gonna find that theme.
Yeah, especially when the main account is blocking people. Like, can you get a better social media manager? Like, no, you're not supposed to block people. Ask simple requests. You're supposed to block people who are like, racist and say dumb shit and are assholes. And are, firing up the account and trying to ruin the integrity of the account. And when someone asks you, hey, can you have CFL? Can you add Australian tennis or whatever? Like, you're the Action Network. You're supposed to look into this stuff. You're like, hey, what's our response here? This is how you grow the player base. Because the player base is your consumer base of your tout product. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we could probably. We could probably do a whole episode just on Daily Wager. My experience with Daily Wager in the last year. I've stopped watching it, especially since Preston left. But we will. I'm going to digress. Stop that digression and continue on. Better Collective, by the way, the company that bought the Action Network is the same company that bought Roto Grinders for a measly $8 million. I'm happy for those guys got paid, I guess. Roto Grinders and myself go back a ways. They all ended up blocking me, I think, at some point, but I still remember on their site though.
Especially, especially because around the time of the whole episode of the guy who won the
Ethan Gate
employee. Yeah.
Well,
they were caught up in that.
The Max Delury, 888 entries in an hour. When you weren't supposed to use any automated methods, and
A
all
lot
those
of
other
fast
shady, all
typing.
those other shady things that went on. Anyway, the point being is that RotoGrinder still sends me promos every day in the mail to buy sports betting picks now because there's still the DFS community, but apparently that's not. I mean, they sell their DFS tools, but I really don't know too many people that play those with sports betting available.
Yeah, because sports betting isn't available everywhere on a one-on-one basis. In certain states there is, but I think that, they're just trying to catch the net of whatever affiliate link click that they're hoping they, snag you on.
Yeah.
As well as the fact too that it's I think that we're seeing it in American sports broadcasting. We're seeing it, when you look at the ESPN ticker, talking about the line is a normal thing now. It's not a fox ball anymore.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's
That culture
it's
shift
mhm.
was always going to
And
come.
that's
That culture shift was always going
right.
to come.
And with it now
So
comes all the media BS behind it.
yeah. So before I hop on to the next Twitter people, that gives me a good moment to talk about the mobile betting. So in New York here, we've really kind of screwed the pooch with uh, Governor Cuomo giving he apparently they're saying it's 2 contracts now, but he said 1 contract with 4 skins. But I'm hearing 2 contracts and 2 skins each. So we may have it's a very good possibility we may have one sports betting odds system in the whole state. And that's untenable, undoable for anybody that wants to take sports betting seriously.
Yeah, no, I think that how the states are rolling out everything is is so interesting and it's so different. Like for example, I know for the online poker space, Michigan and Pennsylvania are now sharing player pools, and the majority of the people who signed up were in Michigan, but not many people signed up in Pennsylvania, maybe because it's not pitched correctly, or there's maybe better options for their state, so you don't get as many people in the player pool. I also will say here in Massachusetts, they are currently discussing legalizing sports betting, not only to have an online component. I think we have 3 companies that would be DK, FanDuel, and William Hill, which actually has quite an IT presence here in Massachusetts. As well as I think also some administration operations standards, and they of course want part of the Massachusetts action. I think every entity wants it because we love our sports here, and that also counts for brick and mortar. Encore win in the Boston Harbor also is going to be making their own sports book, and ironically, they were actually making the sports book next to the poker room. Then the pandemic happened, and then they got rid of the poker room, which is now a Star Power, which will probably be your sports book when everything comes back. So there you go. That's sports
Well,
betting in
hey,
Massachusetts in a nutshell.
that's a nutshell. I do
Yeah.
want to say that Will has a huge presence in the Native American casinos in New York State.
Yes.
There are 3 Turning Stone properties, all within an hour of my house, and they're all William Hill. And the closest one is called Point Place, and it's in Madison County. And I cashed 3 $50 winning tickets there. And when I went to collect my winnings, they took my picture at the counter.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. That type of stuff
So
is just
I did not
makes you feel like a
officially
criminal.
exactly. It makes you feel like a criminal. I did not get back off. I did not get limited, but they certainly profile you. There's no question about it. So yeah, it's I'm considering. I'm an hour's drive from the Pennsylvania border, and that gives me access to 14 different sports books. So I'm not saying it's the only solution, but it's looking like the most viable one for me when football season rolls around. I don't know
Yeah,
at
and
this
the thing
point,
is,
but
Massachusetts has competition too, like this. Like Rhode Island has a few sports books now, which have been very, very popular. Particularly, it's always curious to see what the Patriot line movement is at Twin River as opposed to everywhere else, because it's always a little bit different.
do you get
There's also, I think,
Bel-
MGM. Go ahead.
do you get Bel- do you get Belichick props out there?
Yeah, I think. Oh, yeah, yeah. All the Belichick props. Is he wearing a hoodie? Is he going to slam the the headset, or not take a question on Tom Brady, or obviously will there be another camera somewhere on the sideline? I'm sure there's all types of stuff you could fit on there. I think also MGM Springfield is going to have some sportsbook stuff too, and I think they may also be on a Native American property. Most of the casinos and stuff in Massachusetts, that's different in New York, is that most of ours are mostly what I would call outside entities, or more of your modern gambling entities, as opposed to New York, where it's all mostly being done on tribal ground, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I don't think nothing's going to get launched in on the in Manhattan or Brooklyn anytime soon.
It's a very interesting concept they have at the Buffalo casino, which is, I haven't been there yet, but it's a Native American, the Seneca Indians, and they have an app where you pick your bet on the app, and then you bring your phone into the sports book, and there's a QR code, and they scan the QR code on your phone, and that prints out your ticket. So it's, they really push that because obviously it tracks who's doing it,
Right.
and they can profile you instantly as a winner or not. But you see the commercial for it on every Sabres game, and the intermission report is actually sponsored by the sports book. So it's very interesting times. We'll see what sticks and what doesn't.
Yeah,
It's
another fine line, right? With all these NHL, I know the Vegas Knights got into a lot of hot stake about that too.
Oh yeah, they did an advertising deal with a tout service, a Mexican tout service.
That was the best part of Mexican.
And they canceled it after I don't know 48 hours or something like that.
There was after the Twitter reaction. It seems like everything gets fixed these days.
So let's move back from betting legalization back to the Twitterverse, and I want to talk about some podcasters and some of their new projects. We have Rufus Peabody and Jeff Ma, of course, have been hosting the Bet the Process podcast, which Rufus is a professional bettor, and Jeff is a very wealthy former member of the MIT Blackjack team. His pseudonym was Kevin Lewis in the documentary, if you remember that.
Yep.
They've done 4 seasons of their podcast, and I find it to be wildly unentertaining, but also sort of invaluable. I find that there's always like a good solid 5 minutes of gold in every podcast, and the rest of it is like autistic screeching. It's and I understand that they're both fighting. A lot of times they're fighting for the narrative of the podcast. Like they kind of just have a guest and they just go at it like freestyle, and that I don't know. I just doesn't click with me. I don't like all that confrontation in the podcast. I just like it to flow, the information to flow. But Rufus, I do enjoy his podcast, but he has started a new website with Captain Jack 2000. Jack Andrews is his pseudonym. It's not his real name. And they're starting a website called Unabated Sports. I believe it's unabatedsports.com. It might just be unabated.com, which sounds vaguely dirty, but it has to do with sports betting education. And there's been a lot of pushback on whether this is a cash grab, or it's an earnest effort, or it's just a way to get grab clout. I don't know what to think of it.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of it either. Obviously, they're looking to start something, I think, on a preliminary level that hopefully catches on, so they can sell it to like a higher entity, like a like a DK or an ESPN or something like that, some type of service. But I don't know.
You notice when they talk about skins in the sports betting world, hopping back to where we just were a minute ago, they have like Preston Sports Cheetah is on Yahoo Sports now.
Right, exactly.
It was on Daily Wager, and then they have Fox Sports Bet, and there's going to be ESPN bet it someday.
Oh
When
yeah,
Dis-
no, they're all. It's going to be
when
everywhere. Disney bet,
when
ESPN
Disney
bet.
allows it, yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing is that then you're going to be like, hey, place 5 wagers today and get a free Star Wars T-shirt or something. You know what I mean? Like, you're already seeing the blurred lines. Like,
Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda parlay of the day.
Yes.
So
it's coming. Trust me.
yeah. So Captain Jack and Rufus are launching this unabated sports site, and the jury's still out. But also Captain Jack, and I believe Rufus is making an appearance as one of the speakers, is hosting a live webinar for sports betting consumers called betfest.com or betfest. Betfest.com is the website. I've signed up to participate in this as a viewer. I may live stream my reaction, or I may just record my reaction and edit it to the best parts and put it up on YouTube afterwards. There are some interesting guests, and there are some horrible guests that are VSIN type touts, like Bill Krackomberger, who sells his own. He has his own tout app, and I feel like that's they have them to draw eyeballs to this thing. But if I was really doing something in earnest to be for the good of sports bettors, I'm not sure I would have those ads on. We could also move on to some other betting pods. We could talk about Rob Pizzola.
What's going on there?
Well, Rob has his podcast called Circles Off, which is actually, I think, of the sports betting podcasts that are out there in the universe, mine included. It's probably one of the best podcasts. Maybe it's because all the regulars are Canadian and they're so polite. But he has decided, he made an announcement recently that he's decided to step away from the full-time grind of sports betting, and he's putting his name and money behind an app called BetStamp, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but it's actually a decent app. I'm not going to lie. It's a bet tracking device. Again, it's missing. It's still in the preliminary stages, so you can track your live. You can track betting onshore, local, offshore, whatever state you're in. It shows if you have closing line value. It shows if you're profitable. Obviously, the majority of the people are not going to be profitable. But the one thing that it does have that I understand why they do it is you're allowed to open an account and sell picks on it. And that is my best guess is how they're going to monetize this thing. And when Seth Byrne was on Rufus's podcast, he said that he was disappointed they had Rob Pizzola on the Rufus podcast because he was a former tout. And Rufus was like, well, what do you mean? And Seth said, once a goat blower, you'll always be known as a goat blower. So I feel like, he's like, I'm not goat blowing anymore, but I'm going to take a percentage of all these goat blowers over here. I'm kind of like the goat blower now. So it's a good app. I wouldn't pay for it. I wouldn't pay for picks. But besides that app, his podcast is really informative, and he gives lots of good betting advice. No. So I feel like it's one of the best places to get sports at the moment. His Circles Off podcast.
Yeah, no, I really like the actual idea of tracking your bets, and obviously, hopefully they can expand that to more sports. But it's also, it's a great way to potentially compare bets. Very similar, as I said, it's kind of like the Kayak or Expedia, but for betting, which I think we all need because generally most of the time I'm trying to test even though I just got a pretty sweet new gaming rig nothing tested more than the 20 tabs of Chrome I have open with various sportsbooks, looking at, where can I find the best line for this boxing fight that it's really, you'd be amazed at how much, memory the Chrome takes up.
Yes. Yeah. You're like my go-to guy for not only MMA, but for the
Yeah.
gaming and, what's going on in the poker world. And
And the
you're
esports
going to have to
space, which
read.
is just blown up. Like Activision, all the companies behind it, EA, they are literally printing it.
Yeah. 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 I know. It's a shame I don't have the vision or reflexes of those young kids because, I was a big gamer in my day, but that's long past for me.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just about the
so
regulation of those markets, which I think will be a really big thing for them going forward. We've already had a few match fixing scandals,
yeah,
as
yeah,
well as
that's the
cheating scandals, which I think are more
yes,
prevalent,
no
particularly in the
doubt.
FPS games.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's finish up with the I don't really want to spend any time on this,
Mhm.
but one of the other popular podcasts that I don't listen to at all is Spanky. He has a podcast called Be Better Betters, and he does talk to people in the gaming industry, a lot of traders for sports books and stuff like that. And his shtick is to kind of like, I'm the guy that holds them to task because I'm the big player, the market maker. I throw a lot of money around, and he has obviously a lot of beard accounts all over the place. But the majority of in my opinion, of the podcasts is, the good old days, and we used to make a lot of money, and we tell great gambling stories and these great characters that don't exist anymore. But for me, that just doesn't resonate because I'm looking, the theme through this whole podcast is looking for value. I'm looking for something that's going to help me down the road. And the
Right.
good old days is just, that's just entertainment. And if that's all you're looking for, well, that's great. That's something to listen to when you're driving down the road. But if I'm heading to the sports book, I want to hear something that's going to help me place a good bet.
Yeah, no, and I think, just give me some, key information that isn't, that kind of guides me to where I need to go, but doesn't influence me. I think that's the one thing that's really hard for, me when I consume any type of gambling type media is that, is this coming from a place of information and thoughtful discussion, or is this coming from a place oh, it's being sponsored by X Sportsbook, and everyone is, it's sort of like
Yeah.
when I see the MMA betting podcast. I retweeted this the other day to you, Jonathan Coachman's with the other guy, and he goes, "Yeah, just pick the guy,
Oh
say he's going to knock
yeah.
him out in the first round."
Yeah.
That type of stuff, and it's like, you don't get to see that, unless their mic is on. But the thing is, those guys are gonna, with the cameras on, they're gonna start talking, and someone's gonna be at home, like, oh, that's a really good advice, and not understanding where it's coming from the back, what I mean? And that's where the blurred lines kind of, where I
Yeah.
have to, like, learn to see it, but also, I mean, I think politics is the same thing where it's like, you see it there, but you don't want to really touch it or engage it. It's just, the types of things that I let in my filter. You have to have a good filter when it comes to stuff because there's a lot of bullshit out there.
Yes. Yeah. And to tie this all together,
Mhm.
before we move on to the next couple of things,
Right.
um, what do you think? I mean, you kind of answered this a little bit already, but
Yeah.
what do you think makes good betting content? Because let me frame this. You've got, the empirically, like when I do my video podcast every week, I do something, I try to do half educational, teach a man to fish type of thing, and then half, here's my picks for the week, here's what I like, what I don't like, you know, follow these at your own peril because I haven't been very good on Fridays. Um, well, it's true,
Right.
but um, but the idea being that it's for the beginning to intermediate sports better. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm like, you need to manage your money. You need to do these things. We have basic concepts, why you shouldn't play parlays, for most of 90% of the time, but
Yeah,
you
parlay
should
should be like a lottery ticket. It's something fun you do. It's not something
Yeah,
you
oh,
should be
absolutely.
really.
It's the best. It's the
Yeah,
best entertainment value in sports betting. There's no
yeah.
question about it.
As well as the
No
fact too that
question about it.
you are like the only time you really should be looking at parlays is where can I get a really good return on a result where, if I put in 5 or 6 results in a parlay or whatever it is,
Yep.
when it comes to that last result, is there like also really good hedging opportunities on the other side of that?
Yes.
You,
Yes.
I think most parlays that you see today are just like, it's like literally you put a blindfold on and stick it to the wall. Hey, and sometimes that works, right? I mean,
So,
kind
so
of
you've got
NCAA's example of that.
So you've got on one side, you've got the empirical, I want to help people be better sports bettors. And on the other side, you've got the Seville, like, shut the fuck up if you're any good at sports betting. You're just making it harder on us.
Yeah.
And we don't want the public to get any
That's the
better.
poker player. It's the poker player thing.
You're making the market more efficient by helping sports bettors. You're making it, they're going to
Listen, you have
lower
to
the
straddle
limits.
all the time. You have to play your hands every time.
Yeah. But what do you think, like, ultimately makes engaging content for you? Like, the answer is different for everybody when it comes down to it. So what do you think makes it the content work for you?
I think there's 2 things. One, is there really an honest, genuine, effort to put out just information out there, very similar to like a beat writer that you find in, a sports circle that
Yeah.
you really respect. He doesn't have his into it so much. He's just kind of giving you the information and just, kind of letting the viewer or the reader make their own decision. But there is like a space when you gaming space. There are guys like Gamers Nexus who really get into the thermals and he tries to give you the most, up to date, honest information that is level and as fair as he can present it. And then there's other folks like maybe Linus Tech Tips who, listen, his video is sponsored by MSI, but people, also appreciate his genuineness because, how he really does love the PC gaming space. I think that's why Sal, listen, I know